The next step will be the structural roof framing plan. So on sheet S2, we'll have a structural framing plan. We're just going to put in the lines of the trusses and rafters. We'll do some of these other keynotes and the lookouts, the plywood. These keynotes, these trusses, we'll discuss a little bit later. So we'll put the framing of trusses above the upper floor, trusses above the garage, 2x12 rafters above the living room, and some roof framing on the back porch and the front porch. That'll include a beam holding up the framing, the front porch and back porch. We'll also have a beam for the header at the garage door for these trusses. So this is a completed plan. Let's jump over to the plan that we've been working with this quarter. These are the contour plans. I just came out of paper space in the other drawing, and so the line type scale was set up to about 0.3. This in model space here, I'm going to type in LTS for a line type scale of about 40, 44, just to be quick about it. And then we can see we can have some dashed lines in here. These are the plans that you brought in from Revit. I wanted you to add dashed lines for the living room, garage, porches, etc. These are the footings that came in from Revit. This is what we're going to be framing. But I copied this and paste it over here in model space because you're going to have some framing plan that occurs here. So these two will probably be grouped for sheet S1 for the first framing plan that we'll be doing. The last framing plan that will be, but the one that we'll be discussing next is the roof framing plan. And this is where we're going to start to lay out some framing here. Now, if I jump down to the site plan, this site plan, again, I'm looking in paper space. Notice the lines, they're not dashed. Every time you're in paper space, type in LTS and put in about 0.3. Because remember, when you switch between paper space and model space, you change the line type scale. So this plan has a few more keynotes on there. I think the plan of the packet shows you all the keynotes. These are the keynotes. I wanted to use some hexagons to point out certain things. But your title block, it should be completed. This is the last day of class. This is scale at 16th scale. This is he drew it, should be me. This is job number. You can make that up. And sometimes I call this in C1. I'm going to call it from now on sheet A1. So sheet A1, this is the first architectural sheet, and that's going to be the site plan. This is my student number. And this should be the appropriate square footage right there. And here's roof plan, site plan. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to create another sheet down here for S2 and for S1. Well, let's just do S2 first. It's pretty easy to do. Once this title block is golden, then come down here, float your mouse above site, right click, and click move or copy. So move or copy. Well, move or copy what? Well, we're going to click on site because that's the one that's golden. It's all good. And press and click this thing, create a copy. Then press OK. What happens is now you have another site down here with a 2. So that's a temporary placeholder, the 2. Let's just rename this thing S2. I won't put any high dash in there because ideally what you do is you keep these file names short because when you have a lot of tabs here, a lot of drawings, you'll be able to navigate quicker. So here's an S2. Now, over here, we got to turn this thing to S2. Well, that's, what you do is, since we're in S2, let's call this thing S2. Not S1, but just the S-2. And notice the size of this thing. If I click this thing, this is, what is it? 13/16, 12, 13/64 or 12/64, whatever that number is. Notice here we've got, let's see what we got here. We've got a 16th inch text here, and this is 32nd inch tall text. And I just said this is sheet S2 of 12 sheets. What we're seeing here is the site plan. What we need to do is come down here, click on the word paper, and switch over to model. Once you're in model space, right click, find this pan, and slide over to find not this plan. This is going to be S1. Let's slide over. It's going to be here, S2. Now, if you might recall, that we're going to have some truss diagrams and some keynotes. So I might place this, well, I could place it anywhere, and I'll press exit. Okay, now let me come back out of the viewport, back up into paper space. Oh, one other thing I should have mentioned earlier, this viewport, this is the viewport. But let's go ahead and change this now to 1/8 scale. And what is about to tell you, we'll see, is you can see this thing got bigger, which is fine, which is great. But your viewport, just make your viewport a little bit smaller than your title block. Don't put the viewport on the title block. That's you'll never find it. Okay. So that looks about good there, but to kind of center this thing a little bit better, let's go from paper space and we're going to jump through the viewport. There I did. Now we're in model space. Right click and we can pan over to maybe about here. So this gives us room for truss diagrams in model space and some keynotes in model space. So this looks pretty good here. Now let me exit and come from out of model space. So I'm reaching through this viewport hole in the sheet of paper, and I'll click on model. Now I'm on paper space. Okay, and this drawing will be 1/8 scale. So what we want to do, we want to call this thing 1/8 scale. And then this is going to be, oh good, I had said roof plan and site plan. Let me go back to my site plan. Oh, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. This is not going to be roof plan, site plan. This should read roof framing plan, but I'll let you do that later, okay? So we're not going to draw in paper space. We're going to draw in model space. Jump back over to model space. And again, earlier in the day, I moved this gray underlay floor plan and I placed it over here. So all these lines are on the gray underlay layer. What I should create now is a layer called structural. So here we go. Go to layer properties, and we'll do create a new layer by clicking this icon, and I'll call it structural. Because again, we can turn it off if we want to manipulate something. It could stay, it'll be a plot as a black line. Everything's going to be continuous. I think I like that. So it won't be a gray line. And good. So I like that. I'll close that out. Let's switch over alphabetically. Let's go find the structure layer. And everything on the structure layer should be black. Well, to start our trusses at the top, offset this outside line by 12 inches. So here I go. I use the offset command and I'll type in 12 and I'll touch this and throw it out to the side, touch this face, throw it off to the side, touch this face, throw it off to the side, touch this face, throw it off to the side. Okay. Now, click on one of these new things here, new lines, right click, go to properties, and say, hey, don't live on gray underlay layer. I want you to live on the structural layer. So find structural. There we go. And we close that out. And notice the color, it'll turn black. So let's take this thing and use match properties. So we got here a 1 foot overhang and a 1 foot overhang. Come on. And a 1 foot overhang and a 1 foot overhang. And while we're doing that, we can go ahead and do the lower framing here and here. So that's the front porch. This is the living room. We're taking that gray underlay and we just throw it on structural. So it'll turn black. That's what we want. Here and then here. Okay, that's good. By the way, our ridge here, tell you what, I'm going to hold off on that. I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, so all this stuff's on the gray underlay there. Now let's connect these corners, clean those things up. We'll use the fillet command. Also, one other thing, notice that the this hidden line here, it's dang, it's not dashed. Let's type in LTS, and again, instead of a 0.3, we'll type in 44. We're gonna pump it up. Okay, good. And perfect. Yeah, so there's our dashed lines. But what we want to do is we want to connect the dots here for this corner of the house. So use the fillet command, and we'll click it here to here. Come on, there we go. And I got to do it for the other 3 corners. So use the press Enter in the keyboard, which is just entering the fillet command again. Touch here and here. Roll your mouse out. Press the fillet command again. Touch here and here. Press it again. Touch the tip of this line and the tip of this line. Okay, good. Now, what we'll do is offset this line. This is the fascia. Let's offset it back 12 inches. That's going to be the first truss. So here we go. Use the offset command. We did it 12 inches before. Press Enter. Touch this line and throw it off to the side. The fact is, we can do the same thing for the garage. Okay, perfect. Now, click this line, which is on the structural layer, and the line type, let's change it to not by the layer it lives on, but let's change it to a center line. Okay, good. Press Enter. Now, since that's a center line, I also want this truss to be a center line. Press Escape. So we use Match Properties. And I'll touch this center line, and I'll touch this one. Press Enter. Good. Now, let's work on the top framing. Let's offset this truss 2 feet on center all the way across. And you can see that this last truss is going to be off by 1.5 inches, and then we'll just move it over. I'll explain that in a minute. So I call up the offset command, and instead of 1 foot, we want this thing to be 2 foot. So I'll type in 24. And I'll touch this truss, click off to the side, and just lay out a bunch of trusses. So these trusses, notice, they are spanning. They're resting on this wall here. They'll go up to some ridge, and then they'll span on this, rest on this wall here, and then you get a 1 foot overhang. We'll just keep on busting this stuff out. And I'm just going to keep the video going. I know it's going to be kind of slow. Sorry. I'll tell you what. No, I'm going to stop. Well, hold on. I'll click some of these things off. Now I'm going to put on pause. I'm going to finish it. Okay, now I'm back. So with the garage, again, I offset these things 2 feet. And what happens is there will be a 1 foot gap between this upper fascia and that truss. And then over here, what's this? I purposely didn't put the last truss on. Let me try this now. The last truss. Watch this. Offset command. Come on. Offset command is at 2 foot. Press Enter. Let me take this truss and throw it out one last time. Now, what's supposed to happen is this truss is supposed to line up on here. But the rub is, and it has something to do with the export. Don't worry about this. I don't have a fix for it just yet. But if I measure from here, let's say with O snap turned on, so I'm going to press Special Function key F3. If I click from here to here, there's our 26. Now the reason it comes out further, that 1 3/4, is because on both sides of this building we have 3/8 inch of sheathing and 1/2 inch of siding. So these gray lines represent not core face exterior, it's finish face. So that's problematic, but let's don't worry about it for this class. What it'll just have you do is just move this truss from here to there, and we'll call this last bay 2 foot, but it's not. And it happens to be, long story, that this distance here is 16 feet, this distance here is 14 feet. Again, long story, it's all relative. But anyway, so if this is a 1 foot overhang, let's offset this framing here by 1 foot. That's the fascia. So offset 12 inches. I'll click this thing from here and I'll throw it in towards the house. With this framing, I'll use the extend command and I'll touch the front fascia, click, enter. That's my plane that I'm going to send things to. And then, oops. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to drag it straight out with perpendicular turned on. So that's my first rafter. I'm not going to use a center line. It will be something solid. This is interesting too. The reason this kicks out a little bit, it does go back to the siding and the sheathing. Don't worry about it. So let's call up the offset command and let's dial back in 24 inches. And we'll click here, throw it aside, throw it aside. Okay, and just do the whole roof. Okay, so there's a 1 foot gap here and a 1 foot overhang. So that takes that takes care of the framing there. Now, the next thing I'll mention is we want a fat beam in here. So here's an approach to do that. Let me turn off object snap. I don't think I need the grid on anymore, but we're going to put a glue lam beam in here. It's going to be a fat line. So if it's got a 2x4 wall, let's offset this dashed line by 2 inches. And we'll throw it here, and we'll throw it at the top. Now, at the center of this wall, if I draw a line from the center, let me turn on O snap. Someplace 1, 2, 3, 4, somewhere out here. See, that's the center of that horizontal line. It's the midpoint. If you click here, tell you what, I'll just go with ortho turned on. Come straight down to here. Press escape. I'm going to offset this line by, hang on. Okay, I just did submit a quick math. I'm going to offset this line left and right by 58 inches. I'll explain that in a minute. So call up the offset command, and the offset distance is going to be 58. And I'll click from here to here. Okay, I'll press escape. I'm in the structure layer. Everything should be black. And if I draw a line from the tip of that line to the tip of this line, let me use the O snap to move that around. Okay, let me delete these things. This is going to be the opening. We have a 2x4 wall and 2 inches over. This is the beam. And this beam, let's make it fatter so we can see it. So this is going to be, oh, come on. Let it come down to, come on, thickness, about let's do 0.4, see how that looks. Then I can delete this line here. So what happens is, between my crosshairs and the first dashed line below, that's the 2x4 wall. This will be a glue lam beam, but we'll label it later. So I got a fat beam here, and I got to do the same thing here. If you remember, we had a post here, and a post here. So again, what I'll do is offset this line by 3 inches. Throw it from here to here, and do the same thing in the front porch. From here to here. Okay, press it again. Escape, you're done offsetting. Let's turn those things into fat lines. So call up the match properties and say, well, this is our paint source, our paint bucket, and then we'll tag this thing, and then we'll tag this thing. Good. Okay. Then let me try, I'm going to just try something. If I measure from here to here, that's 10 feet. Perfect. That's what I want. Offset these two fascias by 1 foot. Offset these two fascias by 1 foot. And, oh, by the way, these front fascias here, they also should be black. If I click on this line here, that is on the structure layer. I like that. So use match properties and say, hey, we want these gray underlay lines to come up and live on the structural layer. Good. Press escape. offset this line 12 inches, the spaceship. So I'm going to click from here to here and from here to here. And do the same thing over here. From here to here. And from here to here. Okay. Offset the command again one more time, but change it to 24 inches. And take this rafter and offset it here and here and here. This last space will be 2 foot. Do the same thing here. Take this tail here, offset it 2 foot and 2 foot and 2 foot, and that last space should be at 2 foot. So that's our lines laid out there right now. Just get to the point of that. Now, if I was going to call out a keynote, I mentioned this the other day. Let me try something. I call up the text. I'll click from here to here, and I'll type in, let's say it's keynote number 13. And I want this text to be 6 inches tall. Okay, and there it is. Because if I come down here, this text here, if I double click this thing, this text is 6 inches tall in model space. This text is 12 inches tall. Now these numbers are half the size of what we had in the site plan, because, yeah, take a look at this. This is twice the size of this, because we're plotting this at 16th in scale, and this is being plotted at 1/8 in scale. So this is good. So again, 99% of all the text is going to be 6 inch tall text. If I double click this thing, you can see it's 6 inch tall text. So right up here, I want to put a hexagon, like I'm going to be pointing to something. So to create the hexagon, you just come up to, polygon. The sister to rectangle is polygon. You click this, read down the bottom, it wants to make a rectangle. Click down here and say 6. Press enter. Now we're ready to make a 6-sided hexagon. Don't put it right on top of the number because it never works. Let's turn off OSNAP because it's going to get anyway, but let's keep ortho turned on and I'll show you why. If we click here and it says inscribe or circumscribe, I keep forgetting which one. I'm just going to do that one. And if I pull out here, I think I recall from last time, what was it? I think I might do an inscribed. I could have done an inscribed or circumscribed, but I think a 9-inch inscribed will work. That looks good. Then I can move the text. Now, I have to turn off ortho. I'll move the text inside there. This thing could probably get a little bit smaller now that I think of it. Yeah. But anyway, if I was going to do an arrow, I'd use a 3-point arc, and with OSNAP turned on, I'm going to come down here and turn on OSNAP. And if I were to click here and then here, and I probably want OSNAP turned off, so I'll press F3 and there's an arc. Then if you make an arrow like you're pointing to something, turn on OSNAP, F3, and maybe just come out about a foot, about the size of the text. Click here, turn off OSNAP, click here, turn on OSNAP, click here, turn off OSNAP, otherwise it's going to snap back on itself. Click here, and now turn back on OSNAP. Okay, and there you go. That's how you could do a keynote. Then you can copy this thing like so. And if you want to flip it, watch this. To mirror it, just highlight everything. And if you read down the bottom, it says it's going to ask for first and second mirror plane. Well, with OSNAP turned off, but with ortho turned on, just click something here and go straight down, and it'll mirror it, or straight across, and it'll mirror it. Okay, and it says, do you want to erase the source object? No. So we have both of them on there. So you can change the directions of those things. Okay, so get this stuff laid out, and then we'll go on from there tomorrow. So this is 24 minutes, and we'll call it a day.